sometimes I feel like I'm a drug dealer. I'm going to drop off coconuts in a parking lot at Long's, like transferring stuff from one car to the other, and the people are like, I need my coconut water. And it's funny because it's like, I get it, but at the same time, like, you know, you don't realize, like, I don't think there's anything an addictive quality in coconut water, but it's a mental thing. People get so used to it and want it, and that fresh water, that cocoa vi, they really have a connected experience with the coconuts, and you know, it's tough to take that away from someone. I basically created the system when I was trying to determine for customers what they wanted. I would have customers order coconuts. They'd be like, I want 30 spoon meat nuts, and I would get them specific nuts, and then they'd be like, oh, well, you know, these are too hard or these are too soft. It's kind of like the, you know, bear in the porridge. It's too hot, too cold, and just right. Yeah, Goldilocks. So basically, I'm trying to find this, like, what essentially I call the magic nut, the number 4. That's the middle nut. That's the one that, you know, has that perfect, you know, meat, the perfect water. You know, it's not out for everyone. Some people like this side and this side, but it got me thinking. I'm like, okay, well, I want to create a system that will basically tell people what is in each coconut. So if you start with a tree, so basically the coconuts, they rise out, the flowers come out, they come out the center of the tree, they come out like this. The bees pollinate it, they start to droop down. It's a droop fruit, so it's like an avocado. A lot of people, whatever they call a coconut, it's not a nut. It has a hard shell on the inside, but the coconut meat inside, that's the fruit. So basically you start off with a young, what out here in Hawaii you'd call a keiki, which means a kid, young. That's kind of the keiki little flowers, nuts that come out. Those aren't really harvestable yet. Right after that, then you'll get a popper. So the beginning stages of what a popper would be. And that's what you use that popper tool that we have here. You can get through number 1s, 2s, 3s, and sometimes 4s with this popper. Sometimes it's hard, that's why they get bent. You hit the hard shell and it goes through. So with the 1, you have no meat in it. If you cut it open and look on the inside, it almost looks veiny. It has veins on the inside. There's no meat, no gel, no nothing. So your coconut water is almost tasting like water. It doesn't have the residual sugars yet. You are getting the nutritional benefits that you would be getting from, like we were talking about before, like a Gatorade, like a sports drink. Number 2 would be ghost jelly. Ghost jelly is a thin, translucent layer of the meat, just starting to form. So you can see through it, you can feel it. If you put your finger in there, you'd feel a little bit of gel. It breaks apart really easily. You can't really spoon it up. Essentially, you could scrape it maybe and put it into a drink, but it's very thin and translucent, beginning stages. A number 3 would then be spoon meat. So you could then, it's opaque, it's now white, it's still thin, but you can take a spoon and scrape it off, and it's like the ones where you see like a boba drink or whatever, where it's got chunks of stuff floating in the drink. That you could then use that as, you know, drink extra, or whatever you'd want to call that. A number 4, the magic nut, that's the middle nut. That is the one with the meat that is just starting to thick. It's soft, it's not grainy yet, and it's, if you were to call it finger meat, because you can stick your thumb behind it and kind of wedge your thumb like this and kind of move it around and then pull it off. And it's kind of sashimi style, I call it. So it's got this real flexible, not yet too rubbery, but just kind of fleshy material. And that is the perfect yogurt meat. So that for making coconut yogurt, you can ferment your own and make your own fermented coconut yogurt. That would be the most consistent as far as smoothness. You could then use later ones, 5s and 6s, to make coconut yogurt, but it will be grainy, has that grainy texture. So then next would be the number 5, which is your sweet water, real sweet sugar water. And then the meat is where it starts to get the graininess in it. These ones are harder, can be used for making coconut milk, soaps, ice creams. There is another tool you can use that is attached to a wood platform. You drill it down into the platform, and it's a circle like this with a bunch of small little teeth that are all around it. And what you do is you would chop this coconut in half. You'd have those 2 sides with the thick meat. You would take one, you'd sit there and grind it like this, and that's how you get that confectionery coconut stuff like you see on coconut cakes or whatever you see in stores. I mean, they add sugar to that and whatnot. So that's a number 5, the stuff that would be a number 5. Number 5, 6, and 7s. Those would be the ones that you're using the harder meat to get that byproduct from. A number 6 would then be a champagne nut. So the champagne nut is when it's starting to ferment, starting to number out is what I would call it, and it's kind of effervescent. You open it up and it's got little bitty bubbles in there, and when you drink it, you can kind of taste it. It's like you're drinking a coconut champagne, if there ever were one. And you get flavors of sweetness to sour and bitter, and even oily sometimes. So it's a very unique flavor, a very unique taste. And again, it's different per tree. You can have a Samoan nut or a yellow Malaysian dwarf, or a different tree type. There's so many different varieties that you have. People get a very big misconception that green are young, brown are old. You can have young and old green, you can have young and old brown, or yellow, or orange. It's just the age of the tree. The 1 through 8 happens on every tree. So then the next stage would be a number 7. That's the shaker nut. Those are the ones that fall out of the tree on their own, and made to be seed bearing for 2 months. They're made to be a seed, essentially, to float, pop onto an island, and then become a tree. Those are real thick as far as the meat goes. Very little bit of water, maybe 1 ounce to 2 ounces of water in each, and then it's very oily. So that water isn't really made for drinking, unless again you want to use that as a flush system, which some people do, just to clear out your bowels. And then from there you go to a number 8, which a number 8 has no water in it. You're essentially a sprout, which is kind of this guy over here. It's where a tree has started. You're getting about 1 foot of stalk on the top of it, but what they call it out here is Hawaiian cotton candy, or angel food cake. It's got this material. You cut it in half, open it up. It's a very spongy, unique material that's inside. It's edible, and you can put honey on it, or agave nectar, a little cinnamon or something. You can even fry it up a little bit, and it's really good. It's really flavorful. It has a very unique flavor profile that most people wouldn't consider it being food or understand what it is, but those are nice to have and unique. So that rounds out the number 1 through 8. So going from a young popper with no meat in it, just water, to ghost jelly, spoon meat, finger meat, sweet meat, champagne, shaker, and then your sprout.
Those are your names?
And those are the ones that I came up with. I didn't use anybody else's system. Some of the names were common through the area. They either call them poppers or drinkers. But like the magic nut and the sweet meat, the champagne, the shaker, all those ones I kind of created on my own back in 2014.